Vayan por detrás.
Resident Evil 4 is fucking stupid. No, wait a minute. Just listen out. Before you do that, just listen. I love the game, and I'm sure many people watching this video have at least played this game once or however many times, considering it's been hoarded out to almost every system under the sun. This game holds a special place in my heart as one of my all-time favorite games. See, for a lot of people, they have games that they can play at any time and almost always have a blast. For me, I can put in a copy of Resident Evil 4 any day and play it and even enjoy it, no matter what. You know, as much as I had initially enjoyed the game when I first purchased it. I am not joking there. Now, for a little history, again, before we continue with the video, I have been exposed to this game when it first came out, and I was a child back then. I got to play a bit of it at a family friend's house and see what it was like on the GameCube. Only until quite a while later did I actually manage to get a copy of the game on the PlayStation 2. Sure, it was graphically inferior and wasn't as great looking as the original GameCube version. It had a lot more content though, and I was shocked by how much was on it. You know, already alongside a very lengthy main campaign, you got a Mercenaries mode, which I wasn't really ever good at. Even today, I'm not that great at the Resident Evil 4 Mercenaries mode. You got 2 Ada Wong campaigns and tons of other unlockables. The gameplay was satisfying, and it really set the trend for a lot of other third-person shooter games at the time. It's no doubt that Resident Evil 4 is a trendsetter that disembarked so differently from its predecessors, but it did so with full-on confidence and badassery, paving the way for a lot of other third-person shooters that similarly do play the same, to the point where games that are released even nowadays play very similarly to Resident Evil 4. It just shows how great of a game that is in terms of how it plays. So, now you might be asking yourself, so Mutahar, why did you say it's fucking stupid then if you're gonna praise it so much? Well, being 21 years old now, and in a few months 22, God, I am getting old. I played it again on the numerous versions of the game I own. Yes, before I go on, let me tell you, I own a copy on the PS2, the original PC release, the Wii version, an iPhone version of the game, PS3 port, and the Ultra HD port you're seeing on the video here. I ran through what seemed to be the 900th playthrough that I ever did on this game, and I came to a conclusion. This game does not actually give a fuck. I mean, have you ever really sat down and thought of the coke-fueled trip this game goes through? I mean, it starts out so humbly in the Spanish town on a search for the president's escort. Daughter. Don't know what pressed me to say that. But yeah, the game starts off so humbly, and within what is really just a few hours, coming across so many locales in the game. You know, a village, a castle, a big castle nonetheless. I mean, it's a pretty big freaking castle. And then you go to the research facilities on an island, a coastal base really, all the way to a concluding high-speed escape. It's got a lot going for it. I mean, you encounter the weirdest cast of Resident Evil characters ever. I mean, say what you will about half the shit in Resident Evil 6 or even 5 or the earlier games, this game takes the bee's knees, in my opinion, for some of the most weirdest, outlandish shit ever. I mean, again, really think about it. As soon as you leave this quiet town setting and enter the castle, you're greeted with this thing. Then you're sent out to fight numerous weird-ass bosses and beasts, participating in the shooting gallery even, coming across some more weird bosses, and then you're going into the most distant third act ever. I mean, you know, I've sort of theorized this. The first act of the game is so different than the rest, it's actually staggering. You know, I kind of call this the Resident Evil 4 conspiracy, because analytically looking at it, the first act is so grounded. You know, it's trying to be all edgy and foreboding, and it's like the story is headed somewhere. And of course, the story is there. You know, you're definitely going from point A to point B. You know, of course, you're rescuing the president's daughter. It's like you're put into so many fucked up scenarios, getting more and more progressively, you know, intense as time goes on. But as soon as you reach this castle section, you're thrusted into the most weirdest of predicaments ever. You know, you're fighting, again, these cultists, and at this point, again, it just gets progressively weirder. You end up fighting this thing in the sewer system. I mean, whatever the fuck that is. We can call it the Plagas virus, but what the hell? Then you fight a commando who is an old friend, which again is, by the way, is explained in a separate game on the Wii, which is a shooting gallery. You dodge lasers, navigate through some weird factory base, and just when you think you get to the end of the game, there's a problem too. Whenever you think you get to the end of the game in this time, there's like 3 or 4 points, I feel, that this occurs in. The game throws a fucking curveball and says, no, you got more. Hell, play some Zombie Crane Factory, fantasy here too. And God knows what else we can cook up and dish your way. I mean, doesn't it kind of feel like the developers just stopped giving a crap halfway into the game and said, you know what, let's just make shit up as we go, which I think is actually what happened. Now, while I say Resident Evil 4 is a great game, and yeah, it's got great gameplay, and overall, it is a solid package. I mean, if you have ever thought of picking this game up, definitely pick it up. It's available in so many ways. I'm pretty sure you can find a copy of it on almost any system out there. It's available on a friggin' Zeebo, for God's sakes. Whatever the hell that is. It's actually, I think, a Brazilian game console. But you can see that the game, again, it does have brilliant things going for it. It is a well-rounded game. But I wouldn't be making a video on this just by itself. See, when I actually played this and thought about this, the whole situation got me thinking for a little bit. For a lot of people, this game is a favorite, and for some, this is a point where they claim that Resident Evil had died. Now, any logical person would know that the franchise died with the Resident Evil Survivor, but let's not get into that bit of cancer there. Whew. See, Resident Evil 4 in a way serves as a shift to a newer and more updated Resident Evil format. Gone are the super intricate puzzles that were so prominently featured in the older titles, Resident Evil 2, to the point where a lot of puzzles here are incredibly simplistic. I've never ever felt stumbled on this, and I don't think many people have ever really felt stumbled on this game at all, too. It's very simplistic, and overall, it favors combat and confrontation way more than the original games ever did. It ups the tensions through moments like these chainsaw, this chainsaw bad guy right in the very beginning, the El Gigante fight. In a way, this is exactly Resident Evil 5 if you think about it. Resident Evil 5 is basically the Cliff Notes version of this, and Resident Evil 6 is just fucking in a new planet of its own. So why do the majority of people think this game is great, but then there's a far outcry against Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6? Again, RE5 is essentially the Cliff Notes version of RE4. It's basically, I guess you could say the more intense formats of it just boil down to that game. I mean, you sort of see the similar themes popping up here and there. Hell, just look at Krauser versus Wesker, for God's sakes. It's literally the same friggin' fight. It just got this co-op mechanic to it. And Resident Evil 6 is basically a modernized shooter of the series, chunking its gameplay across several campaigns. Whew, that's great. I think the stupidity in Resident Evil 4, it kind of makes it the game that a lot of people look up to, since it mostly sticks to itself rather than the two later iterations in the main series go. I mean, if you look at it, Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6 are incredibly serious games. I mean, Resident Evil 6 is, in my opinion, an antithesis to the whole series. I mean, sure, it's got some remnants of what the original Resident Evil games were, but it takes what, in all honesty, is just a campy game franchise to this really ambitious and serious height. You're going to, like, the US, you're going to America, you're going to China, you're fighting the Simmons, the NSA. I mean, it goes too serious to that point, right? I mean, I think what makes the game is just the general campiness of it as well. See, Resident Evil 4 may be a stupid game. Like, seriously, listen to Leon's one-liners and look at the enemies, again, you fight at times, and the cliches it really sticks to, and at points it even brags about. Resident Evil 4 knows what it is. It may start out serious and foreboding, and then it just stops giving a fuck. I think that's kind of what it went for. I think it just, like, bait and switch people, like sort of the whole Raiden thing with Metal Gear Solid 2. I mean, Leon doesn't even give a fuck either. His reactions are nearly non-existent at times. It's like watching the dude from The Big Lebowski. He just doesn't care, but you end up caring. You're like, react, dude. And sometimes I wonder why everyone has such a hard-on for Leon, but then again, I do remember that he has a charm that is very easy to love. I think that Resident Evil 4 is the best game in the franchise, followed closely by 2, and I know some people may disagree over there. Again, that is just my opinion. People wonder where the game should go from here on in, and in all honesty, I don't think it should follow Resident Evil 4, 5, 6. I sure as shit don't think it should follow Operation Raccoon City, or the competitive... yeah, they have a Resident Evil competitive shooter, I know. It's not the most proudest of things I had to write in the script, since that's not Resident Evil in the way I personally see it. And the older games, while they may be good, I mean, yeah, you can pop in Resident Evil 2 anytime, and that's a masterpiece to play. They don't stand up in a lot of ways, so what should it do? Well, Capcom already has the answer in the form of Resident Evil Revelations and Revelations 2. Originally debuting on the 3DS, these games have been hoarded out to almost every platform out there, similar to how Resident Evil 4 was, right? GameCube exclusive, right? Sure. And honestly, it very strategically combines what's great in the older titles with what's great in the new ones. I mean, it's no forced co-op, forced co-op done wrong, rather. Even in the scenario with 2, where you do have this cooperative playstyle, you still have to divide these key roles between each other, and that creates tension and allows you to actually converse strategy rather than, giving each other the best of guns ever and fighting off hordes of zombies, which, again, is not what Resident Evil really is known for. You're not supposed to go for this high atmospheric, this intense action-based combat that the newer games have really been known for. Revelations, they're known for having great atmosphere, and gone is the bullet pornography, say for some segments at least. It's an amazing compromise, and if Resident Evil 7 is to go anywhere, then it should go for this playstyle. It works, and it works quite well. Hell, even reboot it, but give us more of the campy shit that we all know and love. Resident Evil never worked in a serious fashion. We grew up with these characters coming from poor translations tossed in an outlandish story. Instead of growing big, it should embrace what it's really known for. Despite the numerous locales you see in Resident Evil 4, you still see the awesome campy story. And interestingly, you even find some of the best bosses in the entire game. It's what makes it a worthwhile experience. I mean, Leon surely is cringy at times, yeah, but that's Leon at his best. Not all serious and edgy like he is in 6. And as stupid as Resident Evil 4 is, again, I think it's the fact that it never takes itself seriously and it remembers that it is a Resident Evil game in its core. And that's why it is such a great game, despite its blatant stupidity. And what really separates it from its successors, again, it's not as serious as it's intended to be. I mean, I love Resident Evil 5, to the point where I've 100% of that game numerous times, not even joking. But at the point, the story delves far off into, what we really cared for and loved, and by the time RE6 comes along, it turned me off to the point where I didn't even want to see the other campaigns after finishing Leon's. Bottom line, it is a stupid game, but it is one of the best Resident Evil games I've played out there. And again, that's just my opinion. It's great from a campy, stupid story perspective. Yeah, it had me giggling at times. I mean, I definitely was having a giggle there, but the story did have a cohesiveness to it, and the gameplay is great. I mean, sure, it is a stupid game, but in retrospect, when I really think about it, I think this is where the series should be headed to. It is keeping the core of the old, but keeping what makes the new game so fun to play. And I think Revelations has a pretty good compromise in that regard, but ultimately Resident Evil 4 is a stupid game. And I wanted to share that little opinion with you, and I wanted to ask people in the comments below what they thought about Resident Evil 4 or the Resident Evil franchise in general, and where you think it's headed to. Do you think it's a dead franchise after the debacle that was Resident Evil 6? Or have they won your hearts back with the amazing title that is Resident Evil Revelations? Let me know in the comments below. This is me, Mudahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. This has been another video, and if you want to see more videos like this where we take a look at games a little more critically and we have these sort of quasi-review kind of formats, and let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I like doing these kind of videos. This is me, Mudahar, and that was my opinion on Resident Evil 4. Let me know what yours is. I am out.